Sarah Malhotra pressed the damp cloth against the last table in the far corner of Riverside Café, her knuckles pale from gripping too hard. The wood was scarred with years of coffee rings, knife scratches, and the occasional carved initials of teenagers who thought love lasted forever. Her feet throbbed inside her worn black sneakers. 3 months of double shifts had turned her soles into maps of blisters. She glanced at the clock above the pastry case, 5:47 p.m., 13 minutes until closing. 13 minutes until she could sit, peel off her shoes, and let the achy settle into something manageable. The late afternoon sun slanted through the tall, grimy industrial windows, throwing long golden rectangles across the scuffed wooden floor. Dust motes danced in the light like tiny fireflies. The cafe wasn't much to look at, just raw red brick walls, mismatched thrift store chairs, and a chalkboard menu written in Sarah's looping cursive. But it had a soul. The kind of place where the coffee was strong enough to wake the dead, the Wi-Fi was free, and the regulars knew each other's orders by heart. Sarah loved it here. Even when the tips barely covered bus fare. Even when Mr. Pandy barked at her for giving extra foam. Even when her bank account dipped into single digits. She was 26, 3 semesters away from her nursing degree, and living in a 300-square-foot studio above a laundromat that smelled perpetually of bleach and despair. Every extra shift, every skipped meal, every ignored text from her mother asking for help with medical bills. It was all for the degree. For the white coat. For the day she could finally say, "I made it." She reached for the closed sign when movement outside the window caught her eye. A man stood on the sidewalk, coat torn at the elbows, beard patchy and graying. Eyes fixed on the chalkboard menu like it was written in a language he'd once known but forgotten. Sarah recognized him. He slept in the doorway of the shuttered tailor shop across the street, under a cardboard sign that read, "Will work for food," in smudged marker. Mr. Pandy usually chased him off with a broom and a string of curses. But today, Pandy had left early, clutching his jaw and muttering about a root canal. The man dug into his pocket, pulled out a handful of coins, and counted them slowly. Frowning, recounting, lips moving silently. His shoulders sagged like a man who'd just been told the train had left without him. Sarah's hand froze on the door handle. She should lock up. She should go home. She should save the sandwich for her own dinner. But the way he looked at the menu, not with greed, but with longing. Like a child staring at a birthday cake through a bakery window. Before her brain could talk her out of it, Sarah pushed the door open. "We're closing soon," she said, voice softer than she intended. "But I just brewed a fresh pot, and there's a chicken sandwich that'll go to waste. Want it?" The man blinked. Once, twice. Then suspicion crept into his eyes. The kind that came from too many doors slammed in his face. "I can pay," he said, voice gravelly, holding out his palm. Coins glinted dully in the fading light. 163. "That's all I've got." Sarah smiled, the kind that reached her eyes. "Keep it. Seriously, it's on the house. Come in before the coffee gets cold." He hesitated on the threshold, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, like stepping into warmth was a violation of some unspoken law. The bell above the door jingled softly. Then hunger and the chill of the October evening won. He stepped inside. Sarah led him to the corner booth. The one with the wobbly leg and the best view of the river through the side window. She set down a steaming mug of black coffee, a chicken sandwich on thick sourdough, and a generous slice of carrot halwa still warm from the oven. "I'm Sarah," she said, sliding into the opposite seat, not because she had to. Because she wanted to. "Javed," he said after a pause. "Javed Ahmed." He ate slowly. Deliberately, like every bite was a prayer. The sandwich disappeared in neat triangles. He used the fork for the halwa, scraping the plate clean. Sarah watched, not staring, just present. "How was your day?" she asked. He looked up, startled. No one had asked him that in years. "I went to the library," he said, voice rough from dessous. "They let me stay until noon. Read the papers. The light by the river was nice today. Golden pink. Like someone spilled paint on the water." Sarah nodded, leaning in. "I love that light. Makes the whole city feel softer." He smiled. "A small, cracked thing, but real. You see it too." "Every day I can." They talked. Not about pity or charity. About small things. The way the espresso machine hissed like an angry cat. How the old man in 2B played saxophone at 3 a.m., and somehow it wasn't annoying. How the pigeons on the roof had formed a gang and bullied the sparrows. "You have a kind heart," Javed said finally, setting down his empty mug. "That's rare these days." Sarah shrugged. "Everyone deserves kindness. Hard times don't make us less human." The Javed's eyes flickered, something deep and old passing through them. "No," he said quietly. "They don't." When he finished, Sarah wrapped another sandwich in wax paper and filled a to-go cup with coffee. He tried again to give her the coins. She closed his fingers gently around them. Save it for when you really need it. At the door, he paused. Thank you, Sarah. You gave me more than food tonight. She watched him walk away, coat flapping in the wind, until he disappeared around the corner. That night, Sarah rode the number 42 bus home. The heater rattled like it was dying. Her wallet was lighter. She'd paid for Javed's meal from her tip jar, knowing Pandy would notice if the register was short. But as the city lights blurred past the window, she felt something warm bloom in her chest. Not pride, not virtue, just fullness. She unlocked her studio at 11:17 p.m., the radiator clanked. Her neighbor's TV leaked laughter through the wall. She kicked off her shoes, peeled off her socks, and stared at the ceiling until sleep finally took her. The next morning, Sarah arrived at 16:45 a.m., to a scene straight out of a fever dream. A sleek silver Mercedes was parked crookedly outside the cafe, hazard lights blinking. Inside, Mr. Pandy was pacing in circles, tie askew, sweat beading on his forehead. Sarah, there you are, he hissed, grabbing her arm. Important investor coming today, very important. Everything must be perfect, tables, spotless, coffee fresh, pastries, displayed like art. Go, go, go. Sarah tied on her apron and got to work. She wiped down every surface twice, rearranged the muffins into perfect pyramids, brewed a new pot of Colombian dark roast. The morning construction workers, students, the lady with the yapping chihuahua who always ordered a puppuccino. But no investor. 1100 am 11:30, Ledron 55, the bell chimed. Sarah looked up from the espresso machine and froze. Same eyes, same quiet smile. But now in a charcoal suit tailored to perfection. Hair trimmed and styled, shoes polished to a mirror shine. A subtle scent of sandalwood and cedar. Hello, Sarah, Javed said. Mr. Pandy nearly tripped over himself rushing forward. Mr. Ahmed, Gerald Pandy, owner, we spoke on the phone. Please. This way. Javed shook his hand briefly, but his gaze never left Sarah. Change of plans, Mr. Pandy. He placed a leather folder on the counter. I'm not here to invest, I'm here to buy. Outright, the papers are drawn, triple market value. Closing today. Pandy's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Tea today. But I need time to. 1 hour, Javed said, voice calm as still water. Or the offer expires. 2:40, 5 minutes later, Gerald Pandy walked out of Riverside Café, a significantly wealthier man. Dazed, blinking, clutching a certified check like it might vanish. The last customers were politely asked to leave with free pastries and apologies. The closed sign flipped early. Sarah stood alone with Javed in the empty cafe, the air thick with the scent of coffee and disbelief. I don't understand, she whispered. Javed slid into the corner booth, the same one from last night. Sit, I owe you a story. Sarah sank opposite him, hands trembling slightly. 5 years ago, Javed began, I was you. Building something, believing in people. I founded a logistics tech startup, Ahmed Freight Solutions. We were revolutionizing last-mile delivery in South Asia. Investors were lining up. I had a wife, a daughter, a house with a mango tree in the backyard. He stared into his coffee. Then my partner, Vikram, framed me, cooked the books, embezzled millions, planted evidence. By the time I proved my innocence, the company was gone. My wife left, my daughter stopped calling. I spent 2 years on the streets. Sleeping under bridges, eating from dumpsters. Learning what it feels like to be invisible. Sarah's throat tightened. 6 months ago, he continued, an old friend, Rohan, found me. He'd never believed the charges. He hired investigators, cleared the final convictions. Turns out my blind trusts had grown quietly in the background. I'm wealthier now than I ever was. Sarah shook her head slowly. So yesterday, you were testing me. Testing people, Javed corrected. 32 businesses in this city. I walk in dressed like I was last night. Most slam the door. A few serve me with sneers, hands hovering near the phone to call security. One cafe owner poured coffee on the floor and told me to lick it up like the dog I was. He looked at her with something close to awe. You welcomed me. Sat with me. Paid from your own tips for food you needed yourself. You saw me. Not the coat, not the coins. Just me. The tears pricked Sarah's eyes. Anyone would have. No, Javed said firmly. They wouldn't, I know. I've lived it. He pushed the contract across the table. The cafe is yours to run. General manager. $60,000 a year. Full medical, dental, vision. Tuition reimbursement, 100%. You hire who you want. You shape the culture. You make this place a home for everyone who walks through that door. Sarah stared at the numbers. 60,000. Benefits. Tuition paid, she could finish her degree. Help her mother. Breathe. But I've never managed anything, she said, voice cracking. I burn toast on a good day. Javed smiled. You have something no MBA can teach. Character. The rest, we'll handle. I have operations teams, accountants, marketers. What I need is someone who remembers that every person through that door has a story. Has dignity. Deserves respect. Sarah's hands shook as she turned the pages. A clause jumped out. Kenna's first policy: no customer turned away for inability to pay. Daily free corner for those in need. Saf, why me? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Javed leaned forward. Because when you have nothing, you learn what matters. And when someone gives you hope when they have none to spare, you don't forget it. You gave me back my faith in humanity, Sarah. Let me give you a future. He extended his hand. Sarah stared at it for a long moment, then she took it. Less. Decade 2. 6 months later, Riverside Café was unrecognizable, and more itself than ever. The brick walls were still raw but now adorned with Polaroids. A construction worker teaching a homeless teen to read. A corporate lawyer helping an elderly woman with her phone. A child's drawing of a smiling sandwich taped above the register. A new chalkboard stood by the door. Thasser, pay what you can. No one turned west every morning from 6-8 a.m. A corner table held free chai, parathas and fruit. No questions. No judgment. Take what you need. Leave what you can. Sarah hired staff who'd been where Javed had been. Lasiro is like former addict, now head barista. Made lats like poetry. A sakanas, beef baker. Her sordo was legendary. Communicated in smiles and perfect croissants. Chris Uncle Raj, retired bus driver, sat by the door, greeted everyone by name, kept an eye on the street. The cafe became a living thing. The homeless poet read his work on open mic nights. The tech CEO cried into her cappuccino after a breakup. The little girl with leukemia celebrated her last chemo with a mountain of pancakes. Javed came every morning at 7:15, corner booth, black coffee. The economic timies. He'd seeded 6 more kindness-driven businesses, a laundromat with free cycles, a grocery co-op, a bike repair shop that paid in meals. Sarah finished her nursing degree in record time. She worked part-time at the community clinic, treating the same people who ate free at the cafe. Her mother's bills, paid. Her studio, upgraded to a 1-bedroom with a balcony. Sufalafair's 1-year anniversary, the cafe was packed. Balloons, live music, a banner. Das thank you Sarah. Thank you Javed. See, Javed stood at the counter, uncomfortable in the spotlight. Sarah pulled him into the center. This man, she said into the mic, walked in hungry one night. I gave him a sandwich, he gave me the world. The crowd cheered. Javed blushed crimson. Later, when the lights dimmed and the last guest left, Sarah locked the door. She and Javed sat in the corner booth. Their booth. Remember the first thing you said to me? She asked. I can pay. 163. They both laughed. Sarah pulled out a small wooden plaque from under the table. She'd had it engraved Troax. To the man who reminded us drunkenness is not a weakness. Troid is the beginning of everything. Sikid. Javed's eyes glistened. He turned it over. On the back, Sarah had written, Schwitz, and to the girl who gave a stranger dinner for, and got a family in return. They sat in silence, the cafe quiet around them. Outside, the river glittered under the moon. Inside, 2 lives, once broken, now whole, shared a pot of coffee and the kind of peace that only comes from knowing you mattered to someone. To wife and Epilogue. The Ripple. 5 years later, Riverside Café had 3 locations. Sarah became a nurse practitioner, opened a free clinic next door. Javed's foundation funded 47 kindness-based businesses across the country. But every morning, without fail, Javed walked into the original cafe, corner booth, black coffee. Sarah, now in scrubs, brought him a fresh mug and a slice of carrot halwa. Still testing people. She'd tease. Only you, he'd reply. And you still pass. Some nights, when the cafe was closed and the city slept, Sarah sat alone in the booth. She'd trace the wood grain with her finger and smile.